Tuesday, Luke chapter 20, verses 1 to 8. Here we find Jesus in the temple courts. He's teaching and proclaiming the good news. As he does so, his message does not go down well with some of his listeners. Let's hear what happens. One day, as Jesus was teaching the people in the temple courts and proclaiming the good news, the chief priests and the teachers of the law, together with the elders, came up to him. "Tell us by what authority you are doing these things," they said. "Who gave you this authority?" He replied, "I will also ask you a question. Tell me, John's baptism, was it from heaven or of human origin?" They discussed it among themselves and said, "If we say from heaven, he will ask, 'Why didn't you believe him?' But if we say of human origin, all the people will stone us, because they are persuaded that John was a prophet." So they answered, "We don't know where it was from." Jesus said, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things." Jesus is confronted again by a question of authority. It's a question that has been raised before, and it's one that will come up again throughout the course of this last week of his life. Back in Luke chapter 9, verse 18 onwards, the question comes up of, "Who do people say that I am?" The disciples reply, "Some say Elijah, some say a prophet." But Jesus makes this question personal. "Who do you say that I am?" It's a question for us to consider as we go through the last week of Jesus' life. Who is he to us? What authority does he have over us? Do we feel threatened by the authority that he wields, or by the things that he does, or by the words that he says? Clearly that had an impact on some of his listeners in the temple courts, and it was predominantly, in fact it was totally, those whose authority was seemingly being questioned by Jesus' presence and his teaching. It was the teachers of the law, the chief priests and the elders, who felt threatened by Jesus' very presence. As we go through this week of Jesus' life, what authority does he hold over us? Do we see him as Saviour and Lord? Or are we prepared to take bits and pieces of his message and somehow leave the bits out that become too challenging for us to take on board? In which case, we don't recognise his authority at all. Either he is Saviour and Lord of all, or he is not Saviour nor Lord at all. Jesus finds himself in a difficult position. Here, as he tries to teach and to help people, there are those who would derail him. So he doesn't answer the question directly, but rather he challenges his hearers as he would challenge us to look into our own hearts and decide why we ask such questions, as well as to think through any answers we might give.